Welcome, everybody, to the One Stage at a Time podcast, the podcast where we're playing through video games one stage at a time, doing deep dives into every single level, not skipping a single level. My name is Aaron Neeson, and I'm joined by my longtime and beloved co-host.
That's me, Andy.
It's you, Andy. Andy Prim, everyone. And we are joined by one legendary, renowned person man, Jared Vandergriff.
Thank you for calling me a person man.
You're welcome. I'm very
person man.
I'm pleased you're a person
also,
man. I discriminate against non-person mans.
He does. That's true. I can attest to that. Jared, basically a permanent guest on this show at this point. Welcome back, joining us once more across the ether of the internet airwaves.
I'm delighted to be here.
And we can't get rid of you. Andy, what are we doing today? What game are we playing?
Folks, today we're talking about Sonic 8-bit. That's right, Sonic the Hedgehog for the Game Gear / Sega Master System. And today we'll be discussing Green Hill Zone Act 2, the second stage of the aforesaid game.
Ooh, baby. I cannot wait.
Well, let's get right into it. So that's right, we're talking about Green Hill Zone Act 2 of this wonderful, beautiful Sega Game Gear classic. At least I'm playing the Sega Game Gear version, which I downloaded on my Nintendo 3DS. Are you gentlemen also playing the Game Gear version or the Master System version?
I'm playing the Game Gear version.
I am too. On my computer.
Which I'm sure you purchased legally via Steam or some other method, right?
Yes.
Good. We are an anti-piracy program, so it's good to hear that you would only choose legitimate means.
Yes.
And yet, ironically, we're pro K Rule. So,
yeah, we're a very pro K Rule podcast. He's got some good ideas. What can I say?
He's got some good ideas. The man has a manifesto, and I agree with it.
All right. Well, let's get into it. So this is Green Hill Zone Act 2, the second stage of the game. Let's do like some opening impressions here before we get into the nitty gritty. Aaron, what did you think of this level?
Not super hilly, not super green.
True on both counts.
Neither of those things. But I appreciate that. You know, I actually really appreciate that because one of the things that you get with Sonic levels, which Mania, which the later games, but Sonic 1 and 2 especially, for the Genesis, Sonic 1 and 2, you'd have these stages. You know, you'd have these stages, and then you'd have acts within the stages, and they all felt very samey.
Sonic 1 especially, they kind of run together, like where you've got 3 in a row of Green Hill and then Marble Zone. Yeah, it can be kind of exhausting.
Yeah. So I appreciated that in the Game Gear version. I really liked how they made it so it wasn't just another like version, maybe a little harder version, maybe of the same thing as Act 1. Act 1, you were running across Green Hill Zone. You were on the Green Hill. You're out in the open. You're running. Act 2 took you underground, and I appreciated that. I liked it a lot.
I agree, dude. I like how different this feels from the first act.
Mm-hmm.
We can tell we're in the same general area based on like the tile set and the music. But yeah, the feel of the stage with going underground and waterfalls and all that stuff, it's like a totally different spin on it. Like you said, more like Mania, where like, or Sonic 3 and Knuckles, where like the second act of each zone is so different from the first act.
Yeah. I liked that they did that. I really liked that they did that, and I thought it was funny that they did it for the Master System and the Game Gear version. At least I assume the Game Gear version, but not for the Genesis version. It's ironic and funny.
Yeah, exactly. Jared, what did you think of this level?
Yeah. I mean, it still feels very Sonic-y. You're still going fast and collecting rings and all that. But I did appreciate that there's a little bit of exploration in this stage. There's a secret to find.
Oh, is there ever?
There's like a pretty significant secret. I like that you just fall through the ground to get into the cave system initially. I think that's really neat.
That's tight.
There's some interesting little bits of level design that we can talk about in a second. But yeah, I thought it was neat.
When I first played this level, I played Sonic 2 for the Game Gear more like when I was a child, and I didn't play this one until later. And the first level of Sonic 2 for the Game Gear and also the Master System is Underground Zone. And so when I got to the stage and like fell underground, I had like a memory collision in like my biocomputer, and I was like, wait a second, what? An Underground Zone? Which game is this again? But then I figured it out. This just happens to be an underground level, which kind of reminds me, it's kind of like anticipating Underground Zone from its sequel.
Yeah, I remember Underground Zone from its sequel, but I didn't play much of it. Like I said in last Sonic episode, I played as much as the Game Gear that was mounted on the Venture shelf near my house allowed me to play. And I remember distinctly the Underground Zone. Like you're in underground and a lot of, and it was a minecart level. You remember that, Andy? It was a minecart level.
Yes. Yeah.
There were minecart sections that were extremely frustrating.
Yeah. That whole
little
game,
7-year-old me.
That whole game is frustrating.
Yeah. Like I was expecting those levels of frustration with this game. Thus far, I've been pleasantly surprised by this game and how like kind of pretty tight so far.
I agree. It's a very tight game, both in the figurative and literal sense. This, like we talked about the first act of this zone previously and how it was pretty straightforward, very basic, not a lot happening, basically a tutorial level. This feels like the first real level of the game. And it's interesting for a lot of reasons. Yeah, like Jared, what did you think were like some of the more like interesting level design choices that they took here?
So something that struck me was when you're in the cave level, there the cave area, there are the spikes overhead. So it sort of forces you to use the spin to get past the enemies, because if you jump, you just run into the spikes. So I thought that was cool that they kind of make use of that as a move to get, more easily past enemies. Which I feel like that move in particular is just like totally eclipsed by the spin dash in later games. And here it's actually like super useful. And that honestly like hadn't occurred to me to just do that as often as I've been doing it just in playing the first two stages of this game.
I agree. That's really cool that they worked that in.
Yeah.
Most of the time though, in those little areas with the spikes up above, you can just tap the jump button and he won't just hit the spikes.
Yeah, I can see that. But it's definitely easier to do the spin.
Yeah. But as somebody who started with Sonic 2 with the spin dash, not having the spin dash feels like a huge handicap. So like I'm always like averse to just running and rolling,
I understand. Yeah. Me too.
The collision on the spikes is a little weird and it doesn't always activate. But just in I guess it's better for like my own like peace of mind or whatever to like just roll into the guys rather than attempting a jump and possibly colliding with the spikes. But I like how they kind of encourage you to master that use of the spin. I think in the manual they call it like a supersonic spin or something like that. But nevertheless, it's cool. I like how they work that in there. All right, fellas.
Yeah, and it's also weird. It's a weird moment to sort of do that too, because like, not only are there spikes up above, but in this level, a lot of the times you're in water also.
That's true. Yeah. So you lose your momentum. If you miss. Like if you do it too early and you don't hit the enemy, then you have to like slowly back away and then try to get momentum back and do it.
Yeah. They introduced a lot of physics complications in this level.
They do. We've got springs. I like how towards the end, or I guess it's so short, but like halfway through is also towards the end. But after you get out of the underground cave area, you kind of bounce up some springs and you kind of get out of the cave. And then there is a hill. There's one single hill a big hill that you go down at the end. Then you can get some air, and then you're pretty much at the end there. So I kind of like the progression in this stage. It goes through. Even though this stage takes about 30 seconds to beat, it has distinctive movements.
Not if you explore. Not if you explore.
And Aaron, tell me more about that, because in your exploration, did you find any secrets?
I found the precious. I found the precious in the cave.
Did you have to defeat a golem in a riddle contest to get it?
No. No golems, no riddles. It was just there. It was this weird, like shimmering, slightly opaque, or transparent, transparent, shimmery chaos emerald.
A chaos emerald.
Down
a shiny.
Yes. I found a chaos emerald, and it was glorious and a surprise and fun.
By the way that it looks, that it's imbued with chaos.
Yeah,
because it makes no sense.
All of the negative energy of humanity is contained therein.
Is that canon? Is that actually what?
just wait till we get to the lore corner in about a minute here, and we'll find out.
Okay.
But yes, we found our first Chaos Emerald, the first of 6. There's only 6 in this game, which that was the case also in Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Genesis. In later games, it was changed to 7, but in this one, and I think also in Sonic 2 8-bit, it's also 6, but certainly it's 6 in this game. But we've discovered the first one. We didn't have to go to a special stage. We didn't have to do any half-pipe shenanigans or blue sphere shenanigans. It's just right there waiting for us. What do you guys think of that? Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
I was just saying, it's a little hidden. You got to look for it a little bit in this one. But yeah, it's just hanging out there.
Yeah, you have to kind of backtrack and fall down a waterfall at the right point to get to its chamber.
Yeah, the game tries to direct you somewhere else. Like it puts a spring, I think. If I remember correctly, it puts a spring somewhere. Yeah. But if you forego the spring, you can basically follow a path directly to it. Or you can follow the spring and then fall down a pit.
Yeah.
And that'll put you back on the path towards it. But
right.
It does encourage you to not. It doesn't provide a direct path to it. You have to just sort of go around the direct path, and then there it is, though.
Yeah, it's a little bit out of the way, but if you're willing to hunt for it a little bit, you can discover its chamber without too much difficulty. But you'd have to know it was there in the first place, which you wouldn't necessarily know.
Or feel like exploring.
Or if you like exploring, yeah, which we do on this program.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like there's something. It feels more like an achievement when you get a Chaos Emerald from like doing really well at a special stage, because those are pretty challenging in most of the Sonic games versus just like going a different direction and happening upon one. There's something that's a little mundane about just finding it like out in the world, but I do appreciate the incentive for exploring though.
Yeah, and I totally see what you're saying. Like in like Sonic 3, for example, you do the exploration and then you find the giant ring and then you go to the special stage and you have to, triumph in a game of skill by doing blue sphere flawlessly. But in this, there's no blue sphere, nothing like that. Maybe you lack that sense of accomplishment a little bit. Still, something in me appreciates the simplicity of it, that you just grab it and then you have it and you don't have to worry about doing a mini game or anything like that.
Yeah.
There's something to that. It reminds me of like, because in this game, there's really nothing. You get all 6 Chaos Emeralds, and I assume like the Genesis game, nothing really fundamentally changes about the game.
Yeah.
You get the quote unquote good ending, but at the same time, even if you get the bad ending, Robotnik's still defeated. So immediately what jumped to my mind, it might not be the perfect like 1-to-1 comparison, but like Skulls from Halo Like that's what jumped to my mind immediately. Like you go and hunt these things down that are in obscure corners of the world, and then, it's a little bonus, and it was, that came 10 plus years, 10-ish plus maybe years after Sonic. So, they added a little like, oh, these skulls, you can turn them on and they do this and this. But, at the same time, they're really just a collectible that you go and find in really random places in the game.
Yeah. The thrill of finding those for me was always just like finding them in the first place, not actually like using them later on.
Yeah.
Master Chief doesn't go Super Saiyan if you get them all.
No,
mostly don't they hurt you?
Yeah, they make the game harder in most games.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, Sonic later on games, you get 7 Chaos Emeralds, you turn into Super Sonic, and you're literally hyper fast and invulnerable. And in Halo, you get these super obscure collectibles, and they make all the enemies giant and double the damage.
Yeah.
Oh no. Well, one thing I appreciate is that they actually look like emeralds in this game, which is not the case in most of the later Sonic games.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't they? I don't know what does an emerald look like.
Well, they're green, first of all. And in most of the later Sonic games, there are all kinds of different colors.
They're multicolored, sure.
Yeah, but in this one, they're just all green.
Oh, is it just the color?
Well, also the shape. I mean, emeralds aren't generally faceted like the way diamonds are. They're cut in kind of a different way. I mean, you can cut it whatever way you want, but, you don't think of an emerald looking in that same shape. Like the Chaos Emeralds look like diamonds in the later games, like the way diamonds are traditionally cut.
Well, at this point, 30 years on, doesn't that seem like that's the way emeralds are cut?
Who knows, man? I'm not a gym cutter.
I'm just saying. I think that Sonic is changing the zeitgeist. I think if I
now
ever get
you've
an emerald,
got a friend in the diamond
cut.
business.
Well, welcome again to the segment known as Pedantry Corner. This time focusing on the cuts of gemstones.
Right. I wasn't going to say anything about it because who knows anything about it. Andy brought up how they don't look like emeralds. I'm like, wait, they don't? What does that mean? Here we are. All right. This is great.
I'm looking for the yes and, but Aaron's always coming at me with the no but. What can you do?
Hey, deal with it, man. I'm not here to pander to you.
You're not here to make good content and entertaining riffs for our listeners. Let's see. So let's wrap it up here. What give us, your final thoughts on this level. Jared, parting words on Act 2 of Green Hill Zone.
So I felt some tension between the sort of the exploration aspect of this level and the speed. I feel like once you go off the ramp kind of near the end, you just sort of skip over a big chunk of the ground, which you kind of have to do because there's a big spike field. But then I just like zoomed past a bunch of rings and stuff and then hit the end of the level. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is the end. So I'm interested to see in future levels how that tension kind of plays out, because it seems like this one in particular, sort of the first half is more a little more exploration and like you find a secret, and then the second half is more okay, let's just get to the end. So I want to see how that plays out in future zones.
Yeah, you make an interesting point. Like so far, this hasn't been, at least in this stage, much of a speedy level. Sonic not getting to show off his traditional speed very much. We're just kind of exploring. And then at the end, they're like, oh, right, this is Sonic. We should have a section where you go down a hill really fast.
Yeah, there's even like an arrow pointing down to tell you like, okay, this is the part where you just try to go as fast as you can and finish.
Yeah. Aaron,
if I may just sort of like bounce off that for a moment, like I always hear about so Sonic the Hedgehog clearly is meant to be a fast character, but like those moments are always in the earlier games, at least in the best games, in my opinion, they're always so earned, like not every moment is like a hyper fast run around moment. And it made it so much more satisfying when you got that speed and got going, which I liked again about this level. Like there was so much exploration and so much like careful platforming that when finally it was time, okay, now it's time to get going. You revved up your engine, it got going, and it was, it felt so much more satisfying. Like, did you guys feel that at all? Because like I always get frustrated and people are like, Sonic's about speed all the time, always going fast. I'm like, not in my opinion. The best Sonics, like the speed was an earned moment, an earned great culmination of what you've been doing,
Yeah, it's true. I mean, the classic Genesis games would have lots of loop-de-loops and hills and, rev up parts to let you feel that speed. But they would also slow it down, certain like zones like Mystic Cave or like Labyrinth Zone, ones like that. You're not really going fast. It's just pure platforming for the most part.
Yeah, they've always had even when they give you the chance to just like take off and go really fast, there's always still stuff to do, and there's stuff in the way of letting you just do that through the whole level. And part of what's satisfying about Sonic games is like knowing the level well enough that you know what you can do to get around those things and find either an efficient path or just like your favorite path through the level, because in a lot of cases there's different paths you could take, which is really cool too.
Yeah, that's so true.
In my younger days, when I was a wee lad, me and my brother would play Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and we would always try and get Supersonic before we left Emerald Hill.
Yeah. Can you do it? Are there enough to do it?
There are, if I remember correctly, it's been a long, long time. If I remember correctly, there are exactly 7 lampposts in Emerald Hills, 1 and 2 combined. So you can get Supersonic.
You have just enough to do it
before you hit Chemical Plant.
That's crazy.
And I feel like I should have double checked this before saying it,
before just making spurious claims.
Right, but in my brain, in my little kid memory, I remember us loving getting Sonic before hitting Chemical Plant and just feeling the exhilaration of having Supersonic for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Until you got to Death Egg. Ugh.
Oof. Well, fortunately, we won't have to deal with any Death Eggs in this game.
If you say so. That Eggman, I think that he's going to kick our butts later on.
Well, he may well kick our butts, but we'll find out in the next stage, which is Green Hill Zone Act 3, where we will confront the Mad Doctor himself, Dr. Eggman.
Dr. Ivo!
Yes, of course. He was always Dr. Eggman in Japan, but in America, he's had certain other aliases. Gentlemen, what do you say we visit the lore corner?
Yeah, let's
please. I love Sonic lore. It's pandemonium.
All right. Well, Sonic lore certainly is pandemonium, and we have a variety of sources to choose from. There's, the more traditional sources like the Sad AM cartoon show, much beloved by many. The other cartoon shows like Sonic X, or even if we're, feeling really crazy, we could get into Sonic Underground. Or the comedy one, The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog with the bad animation. There's even the lore that we get from the games, like the later ones, like the Sonic Adventure stuff. And then there's also like the Archie comics, which were pretty popular in America when we were children. I certainly read a lot of them. But because this is kind of an apocryphal, lesser-known Sonic game, I thought we might look at some apocryphal, lesser-known Sonic lore. Okay, fellas. In 1991, there was a promotional comic released as a tie-in for the original Sonic the Hedgehog, which also came out in 1991, as did this game. And this promotional comic, it's not too long. It's like 10 or 12 pages or something. But it relates the secret history of Sonic the Hedgehog and Dr. Robotnik, Dr. Ivo Robotnik. Believe it or not, gentlemen, before Sonic was a blue hedgehog, he was a brown hedgehog. And through various circumstances, he meets a doctor not named Ivo Robotnik, but named Dr. Ovi Kintober. Which, if you're paying attention, you might realize that that's Ivo Robotnik backwards. Turns out Ovi Kintober is a kindly scientist who teaches Sonic how to run on a special treadmill or something, and that's what turns him blue and gives him his super speed. And then there's an accident where Ovi Kintober is he's trying to do some experiment on the Chaos Emeralds to remove all of the negativity from the world, but he accidentally spills a soda drink on his computer. And I'm not making this up, this is what happens in the comic. And he unleashes the negative energy, and he gets turned into a negative version of himself and becomes Dr. Ivo Robotnik.
Andy, I'm looking at this comic right here, and I've seen this before, but I didn't notice this one detail that you have also glossed over. After the explosion and Sonic is turned blue and he receives his new, and at this point, iconic shoes. Do you remember what he says as he looks in the mirror?
I don't. Hit me with it.
Sonic says, and this is a reading exactly how it's written, Rico Suave.
Oh, no.
Amazing.
This is truly the most 90s thing that has ever been put pen to paper.
and folks, as we so often say on this show, this comic book should be taken as 100% canon and should not be questioned.
And it was it probably was the first thing that was written as canon, right? Maybe?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, so the very first thing that we can sort of kind of look to as canon is something that Sega of America came up with that they called the Sonic Bible, which I'm not sure if Sega of Japan had much input on this. We'll get into the history of Sega at some point, but it's a weird company. It started actually in Hawaii as an American company, and then it was bought by Japanese people later, yada, yada, yada. So anyway, there's a lot of players here. But suffice to say that they had this internal Sonic Bible at Sega of America, where a lot of these concepts, like Ovi Kintober is in there, and Sonic is a brown hedgehog from Nebraska named Sonny, and then he becomes Sonic later when he gets his super speed. It's some wild stuff.
I'm so dismayed that all of this was disregarded for the new Sonic film.
Yeah, I wanted to see Ovi Kintober in there.
I'm a little upset.
Well, I had no idea about this. Maybe you fellas have heard of this. I read a lot of the Archie comics. Did any of you guys read the Archie comics as kids?
Oh yeah, I got them from the library all the time.
Nice. That's a nice library that has comics you can check out.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know this, but in the UK, there was a different Sonic comic that they had over there. It was like a magazine that had comics and other stuff in it, but it was this long running 200 and some odd issue Sonic comic that was totally different from the Archie one. And in that one, they maintained the Ovi Kintober origin story for Ivo Robotnik.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess this thing is well regarded in the UK. It, much like the American Archie comic, it had one singular creator who kind of was running everything. And I guess that guy is still doing an unofficial web comic continuation of this original thing that he did for this magazine. So yeah, Ovi Kintober is not quite expunged from the canon.
I'm as much as I don't think it would have benefited the movie, it might have been interesting to have him start off as Ovi Kintober.
Yeah.
And then, he goes crazy and he's like, oh, no. I'm not a Robotnik. Rock
Or like,
reconnaissance.
at the end when Jim Carrey's stranded on the mushroom planet and he looks like a hobo, at that point he could be like, I'm changing my name from Ovi Kentober to Ivo Robotnik.
Yeah, it would have added nothing to the narrative, but it would have been a nice nod to the series as opposed to the shoes. Sorry. As opposed to the shoes, which are just throwaway. Hey, here's some new shoes, Sonic. Thanks, my iconic shoes. Sorry, I'm still upset about it.
No, it's fair. Yeah, it was kind of silly. Hopefully in the sequel they'll delve deeper into the origin of his magic shoes. But yeah, we got kind of a short shrift in this one.
His magic Payless shoes that little girl just randomly gave to him. Whatever.
Yeah, it's like those things are going to wear out immediately.
Right. It's like, oh my gosh, his shoes wore out. I'll give him shoes that will also wear out.
Yeah. Sonic lore is a strange and wonderful thing. We'll probably dig deeper into it. Maybe we can uncover, further knowledge, deeper knowledge about Ovi Kentober.
As much as I love lore deep cuts, from what I've read of Sonic lore, it's probably best if we don't. It's way worse. It's way worse and more confusing.
I was going to ask you, do you think it's worse or the same as Mario lore?
I think it's worse than Mario lore.
I'd agree with that.
But it's these video game lore is almost as bad as like regular comic lore, like regular superhero comic book lore, because superhero comic book lore is, it's rebooted every 10 years.
It's pablum. It's nonsense.
Yeah, comic book lore or video game lore in comic books and in video games, like there's so many different mediums and they all sort of blend together and there's nobody really in charge of it all. Except maybe Shigeru Miyamoto, but he doesn't care about lore. He hates stories. Yeah. Yeah. So it's it's worse in many ways than comic book lore. And so,
I think I agree.
I love swimming in it, but it's a nightmare and nobody should take it seriously.
I think I agree. Like with Nintendo, you have like that one kind of overarching entity kind of controlling everything. Mm-hmm. And even with the cartoons, which are very silly, they still are kind of vague and opaque about like the origins and the mythology and things like that. Whereas like with Sega, they clearly like from the beginning, like don't know what to do with their own properties. And so you get like all these competing sources for lore that directly contradict one another.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Even just today I was on Twitter and people were like, hey, can Amy turn super if she has all the Chaos Emeralds? And everybody's like, no, nobody can turn super except for boy hedgehogs. And I was like, well, in the games,
you're right. Yeah,
in the games, Knuckles can turn super and hyper, and Tails can turn super, and I don't know that that's true.
Ovi Kentober can become Ivo Robotnik.
Yeah, it's again, I love the lore, but it's all dumb.
Yep, it's all wonderful and yet all dumb. A contradiction in terms, a true paradox. All right, fellows, what do you say we bring this episode towards a conclusion?
Do we have to?
All good things must come to an end.
Aw. Okay.
Well, that's been your Lore Corner for this week. I hope you all enjoyed that dive into the secret origins of one Ovi Kentober. We'll come back to the Lore Corner at some point. There's so much to draw from in the Sonic franchise. But we'll also have, some history for you in this series. There's a lot of history on Sega. We'll go to all our favorite segments. We'll hit you with some supplementary materials, some collector's corner. You can look forward to all of that in the future of this series. But we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up for today. This has been Green Hill Zone Act 2. Coming real soon, actually probably a week from when this is released, you will be hearing Green Hill Zone Act 3, which is our first boss encounter with Doctor Robotnik, Eggman?
Ivo Shandor.
Who's Ivo Shandor?
And the guy from Ghostbusters, I could have got.
Okay, yeah, I thought that's what you were doing there. Yeah, who built that building with the dogs and the gate on top?
He was either a genius or a certified wacko.
Yep, that is correct. When someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes.
Say yes. Well,
all right,
Andy, where should people go to hear more of our stuff?
That's an excellent question, Aaron. They should go to onestageatatime.com, and they should also check us out on Twitter and Facebook, and drop us an email, onestagepod@gmail.com. If you have any feedback or questions or comments, we would love to hear from you. Jared,
do it.
I want to thank you once again for joining us.
I am happy that I got to do it.
Thank you, sir. It's been a great pleasure.
Always great to have you along, man. Really appreciate your insights and your contributions to this journey that we're on.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right. I think that about wraps it up. Aaron, do you have anything else you want to say to our wonderful listeners and Jared before we go?
I love you all. I love you all so much. You're so beautiful. Again, onestageatatime.com, and please save and continue.